Hello there. My name is Kay Byfield, and this is your ArtSpeaks Studio Moment from ArtSpeaks Studio in Dallas, Texas, where we offer online and in-studio courses, mostly in watercolor. And today we're going to talk about the 5 big hazards faced by beginning watercolor painters. More than other paint media, no matter how new you are to watercolor painting, it is really important to use professional grade materials when you start painting in watercolor. The reason is that the professional grade materials are designed to give you the maximum amount of brilliance in terms of the color quality, and the papers are designed to balance how much sinks into the paper and how much stays on the surface, and the thickness of the paper, the resilience of the paper in terms of getting wet and being erased and having paints lifted, and the quality of not fading, and how far the paints will go when you apply them. All of those things are dependent upon top grade materials. It is really important to use professional grade painting paper and paints, and use a palette that is big enough and allows you to mix your paints and see your color, and use brushes that are designed for watercolor to get the most out of your efforts as you paint in watercolor. The second biggest mistake that painters make is how much water to use when they apply their paints. This is one of the hardest things for new painters to learn, and in fact continues to be a challenge throughout your painting career. But there are a few little tips that can make a difference. For one thing, don't ever take your paints directly out of the well and apply them to your paper. This will give you paints that are too heavy and too opaque and will not give you a watercolor quality. Instead, what I recommend is that you take the paint out of the well, mix it in a puddle on your mixing surface in your palette, and then before you apply the paint, you apply some water to your paper so that the paint will have somewhere to go. And then you apply your paint. And see how the paint actually goes on its own to cover the painting? This will help you keep from having too little water or too much water. And you can go back in and you can add more paint to your shape while it stays wet. But as soon as the paint is starting to dry, then you start to get out of your shape. Mistake number 3 with inexperienced painters in watercolor is that they tend to use brushes that are too small. You really need a brush that is big enough to cover your surface comfortably. And the bigger the shape, the bigger the brush you should use. The reason why you don't want to be using small brushes is because small brushes take forever to cover your surface of the shape. And when they do cover it, the part where you started is already drying before you finish the painting. Okay, so here we have a large circle. If I take this small brush and I start painting it, you can see how long that's going to take. And by the time I get to this side of the shape will be already dry. However, if I use a larger brush, even without pre-wetting the paper, I can get the whole surface covered very quickly. Mistake number 4 with watercolor is overworking the paint. By continuing to brush it over and over and over again to try to get it all covered, what you end up doing is getting a shape that is really, really flat and uninteresting and looks a little bit dead. And you show brush strokes and you lose that wonderful transparent and flowing quality that is so apparent with watercolor. Don't overwork it. Get in, put in your color, let it flow, and get out and watch the painting paint itself. Mistake number 5 is judging the painting too soon. Try not to look at the quality of the paint as you apply it in the early stages and decide if something is too dark or too light or not quite the right color. It's much more important that you avoid doing any judging, making many changes to paint that you've already applied until after you have covered the entire painting. This photograph is my reference photo for this painting, and I have barely started. I've gotten some blue in the sky. I've established some of the green in the hills behind and in the trees. I've gotten a little bit of rock color. I've got a little bit of watercolor. It would be a real mistake deciding if something was too light or too dull or the wrong color at this early stage, or indeed any stage until the entire painting is covered at least at mid-tone. So this is the first step. The next step would be a light mid-tone, then there would be a mid-tone. Presumably the entire painting would be covered at that point, but without the darks and the details. And then if I wanted to begin to make some adjustment, I could. But it's really better to reserve most of your adjustments till the end of your painting process. As an inexperienced painter, as you paint, it is so much better to not try to over-control your painting. Try to trust the process and avoid trying to fix things too early. Let the painting do its own thing. Only begin to try to put it together when the relationships have been established. You will get better paintings, you will have a much better time, and you will have a more enjoyable painting process. I hope it will help you, and I wish you happy painting. Bye.